September 10th, I was asking God, Walt, the tape wasn't on. It's September 10th. I was asking God, Walt, personally, what's God mean to him? I'm sorry.
I've already forgotten what I was going to say.
Sorry. You said you were going to talk about, you're going to say what God's not.
Yeah, well, it's probably a little redundant. I don't know. You have to stop me if I've said some things before.
Yeah.
I guess the shit started hitting the fan for me in the war. I mean, prior to that, there's no question. I was prior to that, even though I was very young, I was like the whole world. And as I said last time, up until that time, a little earlier for some older people, I'm sure, but a sacred was a god, whether you're a Buddhist, Muslim, or Christian. There was no questions of a god. That was rare. It was almost unheard of. It was just totally accepted and no questions. Now, when you're suddenly thrown all over the world and you begin to see what has been done in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, it's pretty upsetting. Mm-hmm. And then with seeing a lot of decapitation and stuff on the one hand, and on the other hand, we had a chaplain, but he wasn't a Lutheran Missouri Synod pastor, and of course I couldn't take communion. I kept shaking my head, what the hell is this, you know? So I renewed my efforts to find a Lutheran Missouri Synod chaplain, which I finally found 2 years later on the docks in Naples on a ship that was now a dock that had been bombed and it was on its side. That was the dock. But then I had been at the same time always surrounded when I was in Weymouth, England, and Plymouth, England. All of a sudden I was accosted by a lot of, in England, by a lot of Pentecostals. They grab us when we came ashore and stuff.
They do it today.
And they do it today. And I had it with my outfit a little. And it just didn't ring. It rang for a moment, because I know, that has to be put in position with, there's no question of God, okay?
Uh-huh.
And here's really super Christians, you know, I mean, I can't question them, no dancing, no smoke, whatever.
But that doesn't necessarily, well, anyway. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm a young turd out there, you know, and in terms of no, my mother's big no tattooed on my forehead was not unrelated to the morality that was called in the name of the church. So all these things came together for me and were very confusing, extremely confusing. Is this what it's about? You know, killing a Muslim for Christ on the one hand, and walking the straight and narrow, meaning don't have any fun, etc. I'm trying to say big words for it.
Did that mean no drinking?
Everything.
Really? No drinking?
At that time, yeah. Well, with the fundamentalists that you're accosted with. And for me, it probably meant you're bad in the sight of God. I don't know. It certainly meant no sex, without a question. And I was always on a guilt trip there, just in lust in my heart. So all these things were pushed to the forefront with war, death, like crazy.
And the possibilities for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all available.
All available. There was no relative, no pastor, no parents looking over my shoulder. Nobody would know.
You were anonymous, that's right.
I was anonymous.
And everybody else was doing it.
And everybody, especially my best friend, who made out with every ethnic group the world has ever known.
Who's that?
Jerry Norris, who calls me about once a year. Are you going to do the reunion?
No, I heard his name, yeah. He's in California or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I didn't think he could possibly ever be a grandfather.
Yeah. Though he made a good start in the war to get him.
I mean, he had a lot of kids, but I didn't think there would be his. He did claim them. So we always parted company after we hit the beach. And he'd go his way and then tell me all about it when he came home at night, and I was enthralled. That was my excitement, to hear his stories.
Did he respect your decision, or did he encourage you to come with him? Or
he quietly, more than quietly, on a couple occasions, obviously he respected it by when we had lonely periods together, and there were a lot of times like that in the service. He would ask me God questions. He was a Jew. And that came from behavior, I'm sure, that
the behavior had to be motivated by your religion.
Yeah, I mean, whatever Walt is, he does what he says, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I could bond with him 1,000 times easier than I could bond with good Christians in the group who were always wanting to have a prayer meeting or this or that and so forth. I felt guilty for feeling uncomfortable about it, but I never felt comfortable about it. So I had a lot of that. And sort of broke through it all when I was in shock, and I've said this before, and came out of shock walking the hills of Scotland. And I was mulling all this over in my mind, and what the hell am I a Christian for, And I'd memorized Bible verses galore. I'd missed a year of football because of confirmation classes and everything. And so I finally...
Did you question your faith then?
Oh, yeah. And so I finally made a decision, sort of. I don't like this sudden decision thing. That I can't kid myself and say that I'm not a Christian anymore, and it's like saying I'm not Walt Reiner anymore and changed my name, and that went into my head, those two. Who are you kidding? You're still Reiner whether you change to Smith or not, And so what sort of came up with is that these memorized Bible verses from now on I'm going to stare straight in the face. If they don't hold up, then then there's no problem. They don't hold up. It's not it anymore, you know. And so I've taken that rather seriously since then.
Seems strange to me to come to that kind of decision.
Why?
I mean, I guess partly just from my own experience is that when they didn't seem to hold up, I just rejected them.
Yeah, well, that was the temptation for me, but for some reason, I went into this changing my name kind of thought pattern. Why not just change your name? And how do I wipe out parents who've been Lutheran Christians all their lives, and their parents have been Lutheran Christians all their life? I've been a Lutheran Christian all my life. I gave up a year of football to study Bible verses and confirmation. I've gone to church or Sunday school every Sunday all my life. How did I suddenly say that's gone?
He was giving up too much.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me. It had to be something stronger than my confusion to stop it.
Sure.
And that's what I came to. If these Bible verses that I memorized would, in my mind, and mind meant a lot to me. You love the Lord with all your heart and mind, which I think is gone in the church today. It said mind, okay, thinking. In my confusion and thinking, my confusion and doubting was not enough to say the hell with it all. This was not strong enough. Now, if Bible verses, if the Bible says, quick words now, small is beautiful. Now, if I understand that big is beautiful and small is ugly, then I have no problem. I'm not a Christian anymore. It's bullshit. No, I had a problem right away. In the world, big is beautiful. And, but I can't even remember all the things that went in there, but in my head. But, I didn't know that as I thought in little things in my life, it was the little things that were really beautiful. It was the little relationships that were beautiful. It wasn't the numbers and the masses, and I can't remember my incidents. But I did know that the world says big is beautiful. Numbers are where it's at. The war said that. But I also knew that even more important, even in the war, was the small encounters, etc. And some heavy things there between people.
Mm-hmm.
So I always was thinking, I mean, hell, I had nothing else to do between invasions, and I couldn't go fucking around. So I would walk. Nobody's ever walked more lands than I have. Because I'd be alone. I can think of about 4 Christmas Eves where I must have walked 100 miles. And I didn't belong anywhere. For example, in foreign countries.
I mean, it must have been, if you reached the conclusion you're going to, make the word stand on its own. I mean, it had to be, you had to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are Bible verses that, you had to have rejected. I mean, that don't make sense.
I didn't encounter it.
No?
Mm-hmm. I didn't go, incidentally, both biblically and in and sociologically, I'm not looking for trouble, but I'm not going around it. I'm not escaping it. This is as much as I could possibly do. That I now know that we're in a world in which compensation is probably the biggest word there is. We avoid conflict in our lives by going to Aspen, or something for a weekend. We escape wherever possible. We escape reality and stuff. And in a smaller way, I didn't think quite like that then, but in a smaller way I was. Because I remember that I am not, if something faces me, like what you just said, if there's a Bible verse that's what you just said, I ain't going around it. I'm not going to go looking for that Bible verse theologically now instead of social. I'm not going to go looking for that Bible verse. But if one thrown up in my face, I'm going to deal with it. And it's either going to stand up or it's not going to stand up. And so far, they've always stood up. Maybe a little rationalization in there.
I guess.
I don't think so, but who knows?
I suppose if you read it with a historical view in mind.
That's one view. You have to have many views.
No, I said, no.
See, that's the one in this dialectic, this dichotomy between the sociological and the theological. This is very real for me. What does the theological bring to the sociological? Literally, in Project Neighbors, anything. It brings a holistic way at looking things. Instead of all this fracturing down to this particular study. It brings, I told you about Hector and vasectomies, didn't I? Look at it holistically here, Now, the research might show, there's this family.
Makes you nervous.
And then you look at it, so it happened. You have to look at it holistically. That's what theology can do to sociology, which sociology doesn't know anything about. As a matter of fact, it tries to fracture the individual. That's where we saw that in this book. And more. Everything today is about fracturing the individual. Your sex life is about gonads. And no, a human being is a sexual being. You can't separate, in truth, this being, the sexual being, you can't measure him or her by their gonads, or the pleasure principle or something. It's a hell of a lot more than that. Kinsey doesn't know that. The whole Kinsey scene has done more to destroy the human being than anything I know of in the last 100 years. That approach to things. Narrowing everything down.
Dividing and
measuring, exactly. No, that's the contribution to. Now, sociology, the sociological, can do a lot for the church. It can wake it up. It can make it see where it stands in the world. We're called to be in the world, but not of it. Hell, we're so of it, it isn't even funny, but we don't even know it. If we really look at sociological as distinct separateness from, then the two are not the same. The theological and sociological are totally opposites. One breaks it down, the other one's holistic, for example. Now, what the God in me, that I know does is say that if you're in the world and not of it, and you're to be in the world, fully in the world, just don't be of it, that means you better know the world. And those two opposites must be in tension with each other. That's what I was going to say way back to. Churches are either, I'm babbling too much here maybe, but churches are either we got to get ourselves together. The church is shrinking. We're losing young adults. My God, we got to get ourselves together. I went through that. That's why I had a heresy trial. We got to be strong again. Okay? Or they totally marry the political, a la the Christian right, or liberation theology, which I don't buy. Theology is extremely liberating for me, but liberation theology I'm talking about is identity, period, with the poor, which is faddish conformism to me. No. So that's the two options we're given in the church today. Either we got to strengthen ourselves or we go ape shit on the political. Neither one is an option. Tension between these two opposites, and opposites are as important to me as a battery in a car. Without a negative and a positive, you ain't got shit.
That's very Hegelian of you.
All right. But I've said 1,000,000 times, and it means so much to me, because I've had to be. I've been tempted to go one way or the other 1,000,000 times, and 1,000,000 times I said the formula is A here and B here. A is not B and B is not A. They're opposites. They come together in tension, equilibrium, and what comes out in dialectics is not a big A, not a bigger B, not an AB or BA. What comes out is C. And that's so meaningful to me, it ain't funny. Now, there's some folks, who is the crazy woman that came to our meeting that time? Yeah. Now, if there is no dialectics, if you can sense there's no respect either way, from me to them, or them to me, or whatever, if there's no respect for difference,
then there's no discussion.
Then there's no dialectics of any kind. And so I made a quick judgment on it. We're always making value judgments in my mind,
Sure.
Who needs this shit, On the other hand, I have no problem with right-wingers and so forth who can respect difference, No, Walt, I'm sorry, I'm on a different boat than you are, Fine. I have no problem with that. Now let's talk about this. Let's talk about welfare reform. Well, I believe they got to work. Okay, well, I got a book for you to read. What kind of work do you want them to do?
Right.
Now, excuse me. When we were with your parents, and we were talking about welfare reform and so forth. Mm-hmm. Now I'm giving you my perspective, which is jaded. I chose, instead of laying out a trip like I'm doing now, that takes time, I chose to, when your dad said, we need to do this, I chose to ask him questions.
Sure.
Will it stand up to this? And then you come along and say, you always asking questions, which I'm not always doing. I should do more. And what do you say? And here I had chosen to see if I could let him stand tall with his reform,
Yeah.
And, what I'm leading to say on this is what we're talking about here is not desired. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody really don't want to talk about this too much.
That's my guess. Yeah.
Well, because anything else has answers. This doesn't have any answers. Unless he's fooling me here.
I don't know. I haven't read it yet. I just got it yesterday. I picked it up because I was.
No, that's a good title.
What is
One other thing, Patty comes in and hears one sentence or two and can't take it and walks out,
Yeah.
I mean,
But
I'm sitting here, can't ask questions, give me your answers, I have none, and Patty's leaving. I don't know what to do.
Well, I'm sure. No, I was I was responding just. I mean, that's what I thought at the time. And,
That's fine.
And I thought it was a fine discussion. I just wanted, instead of. I wanted to reframe it a little bit and see he was going. Patty's your daughter, and my dad and I talked about it later, not in front of her, but it was like, it's like, sometimes when you get on what she sees as your high horse or your kick, it just pisses her off because she, it's like, quit preaching at people, quit doing, quit, this. And my dad loves a good argument.
Yeah.
And he was having a perfectly delightful time.
Yeah.
He just says, she's his daughter, and it's just something.
No, I didn't mind both of you and so forth, but I mean, you add them all up, and what have I got to say here? I mean,
maybe nothing.
It looked like there's nothing, so I changed the subject. No, that was an interesting scene for me to think about. It really was.
Well, I think I was.
This is a serious matter. Work. This is serious.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Probably the most serious thing we got.
Absolutely. Well, let me just go back one step for. What is, in an everyday way? I mean, do you talk with God? Do you pray? Do you? Is that something that's in your life really? Or is it something? I don't know. Just leave it.
Well, it's a good question. I would say since World War II, it's always there. In no way could I give a testimony at Greg's church. I don't like, even in the family or anybody, to be asked to give a prayer. I mean, the Carls can give them in 2 seconds and beautiful ones and so forth, or the Ras or the Leg. I can't do that. I just can't do that. My conversation with God is I come sit down from taking communion, say at the chapel, and I sit there and everybody's put their head down. And I just say, wow. I mean, I don't know what's going on here, but look at what everybody's doing here. We're all here. So wow, why are we all here? And I'm being kind of corny, but look at what this death on a cross by a 30-year-old. Then anybody in the world doesn't know about it. In the whole world. Since. Or fought over it, killed over it. God knows what over it. I keep saying, holy shit, wow. So my prayers are kind of funny. And I never ask specifically. It's rare that I do. Every night when I go to bed, I know I'm not going to fall asleep in the first 10 minutes, so I throw godly things in my head. And I'd say I don't know where in the shit this is going. And I asked to whatever. Help me be a servant to whatever happens, that kind of stuff. It's very crude.
It's a discussion that happens in your head. Is it something to react to? I mean, you use the image, your hand behind your head, it's always been there. And I guess that I can understand.
I don't even use the word God very much. I believe there's a reason for no name, Yahweh, meaning no. You can't name God. I think the Jews had something.
I'll tell you, the only person I've ever heard say a prayer aloud that sounded to me like they were actually having a conversation with somebody, with some entity, is Don Evans. Mm. And it was like he was sitting down talking to a friend. Mm-hmm. And I only heard him do it once, but, he was asked to pray or something. He just did it in the most natural way, and I thought, geez, I wonder if he actually has his, I hear people talking about praying all the time. And and I don't mean the kind of, kid's prayer, which is rote and doesn't mean anything, or the kind of, gee, if you let me get out of this one, I'll really change my life next time. Desperation prayer, that I think everybody, even if they don't believe, will make it.
And I don't think those are bad
in their life. Well, I've made those kind of prayers. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's a deal with myself or a deal with something else. But
it's both at the same time, I imagine.
But I'm honestly curious. I don't ask because I don't think people are very truthful about their prayers or about their relationship with God. I think that we are told in church what it ought to be. Sometimes who, as far as I know, must pray several hours a day. And she's a sincere person, and I'm sure that but I'm not sure what it is or how real, what's going on there.
Well, I comment here. They're probably real and everything else. The ingredient that's missing is, I don't believe, for the most part, people know what we're up against. And it's just like that Russian woman could see. Do you realize you're being passive here? You're at the beach, at the dunes. They don't know what's being done to them by these 20-year-old assholes, They don't know what they're up against in terms of their own individuality and so forth. This thing here in the work, do people know? Here they spend their lives getting their PhD, they ruin their families and everything else, doing their research and God knows what. In the work. Work has been a sacred for us. It's been an absolute. Idleness is of the devil, etc., etc., etc. Now that's going. This will be more and more of these books. But in the framework of today, we're still talking about a sacred. The answer to the welfare problem is make them work. Even though there's no work, no pay out there. Just make them work. It's a sacred. Republicans, Democrats, neither one question it. They should question it. It's bullshit. If they read this, it's bullshit. Both of them are bullshit. They come out a little differently, but I've been saying that ever since. It's a sacred. What does it mean to be up against the sacred? The Bible talks all the time about powers and dominions. The word is stoicheia in Greek. We're up against spiritual forces, not to walk. Patty, you, everything that morning and everything else. I'm being corny here to make a point. We don't really want to talk about this. And the God is dead thing a few years back, or Marx saying it's opium of the people. The only answer is to shoot Marx. Instead, all he's doing is reflecting what he's seeing, and writing about what's happening.
Well, I mean, I guess that's true. I mean, when you say God is dead, I guess that's really kind of my point or my question is that I'm not sure. I'm telling you honestly, the only person that I ever saw that it seemed to me like God was alive for is Don Evans. And I don't know why that is. It was just the way he was talking. You know what I mean? And he was in a comfortable setting. I don't remember exactly what it was with friends. It was not challenging or threatening to him. And it seemed like this is the way Don talks to God, which was very unusual. And I just wonder if, that's one of the reasons for my question is that, I don't have any, I sit, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a conversation in my mind about with a concept of what is good and right or whatever, and I don't have a name for it. It doesn't have to be the creator to me, but, it's not more than thought.
See, I think there are a lot of people that have no problem in talking with God. Okay, but what I have on my shoulders, what's been revealed to me, is that the faith is about the individual and the collective, not one or the other. It's about both. And what I was trying to say is that I can find a lot of folks that I'm amazed how comfortable they are in saying a prayer and so forth, okay, which I can't do out loud.
But that's for the collective. Whenever you say a prayer out loud, it's for the collective, and it's part of a ritual. It's part of, I'm always amazed to hear Gus, whatever his name is, pray at these they're always eloquent. They're always,
but even that collective is not the collective I'm talking about.
I understand.
The collective I'm talking about is the world.
Okay.
Church in the world.
Well, that's too big.
And when I see in Emmanuel a total conformity as a collective to the world, total conformity. A parochial school that is about being number one and getting rid of slow learners so they can be number one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Prove their numbers by dumping kids in.
Yeah. They're totally, and no effort to even consider something different. That's conformity. And that's the individual, if you will, as opposed to the collective of the world. No, it's not my business to judge, except it's my business to, and it's hairy and scary to bring an awareness to brothers and sisters. That's conformity. That's not easy to do because you get chopped there as fast as you would be in a Marxist cell group. If you raise a question, you follow me? they're both conformity. I mean, they both chop you. And you have to be careful. But the church is called to be in the world and not of it. Fully in the world. But that, number one, means be not conformed in the world. That's what it says loud and clear. God, we're conformed. We're out world to world. We're models for the world. McDonald's can't wait to get what's on Chicago. Oh, I don't know why I go blank. The big fundamentalist seminary there, right in Chicago and State.
Oh yeah.
They want those students to work at McDonald's part-time. They're trustworthy, they're honest, they're not going to cheat, they won't even eat an extra hamburger. As opposed to black kids who are never going to get a job anymore. You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What can I think of that name?
Moody,
yeah.
Moody Bible Family.
Yeah. And I mean, that just pops in my mind. But no risk. The church takes fewer risks than anybody. In thy light you shall see light. Valpo U. Christian University. Faculty has a picnic a week ago. Beer is not allowed. Faculty picnic. Beer is not allowed.
Not allowed?
Not allowed.
Where's the picnic?
It's between our house and the home ec building on the slope there. Any other university, they have faculty clubs where you can get booze, wine, anything else. Not at VU. You can't even have a picnic. And the new faculty club will not sell beer or wine. Faculty club. Faculty club.
I didn't think that was Lutheran. I thought that was just Baptist.
Us Lutherans, see, Lutheranism, Luther said you're not saved by works, but by faith alone. So all those rules that the Catholics have went tumbling. No, you're free. In 20 years, we had more rules than the Catholics ever had. For the simple reason, man always, going way back to our God talk last time, always knows the answer, always plays God. And we have to have, what does it mean to be a good Lutheran? We resacralize, we desacralized the cross and the crown of the Catholics, desacralized it. Very quickly, we got pulpits where the only pure word of God can come from a man 20 minutes a Sunday. It's literally, that's the only time the pure word can come. To this day, a layman can teach a Bible class, but only like an intern in a residency in a hospital, only under the pastor's stamp of approval and guidance. This is a modern church. This is, Luther says it's by faith alone. That a shoemaker in the sight of God is as much of a priest as any cardinal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't understand all the authority that's
quickly resacralized.
That's handed out to people who go to school and
it's called hypocrisy.
I mean, they got two preachers over here at Trinity.
Mm-hmm.
One of whom I have a lot of respect for, Bob Smith, because he doesn't pretend to have answers that he doesn't have. And he's very open about talking to people. And the other one has got, God's word on his side every time and is very judgmental. And I got no use for him.
Mm-hmm.
None. It's like...
But see, the judgmental part is is contrary to the whole book, the whole Bible.
Oh, I know. I mean, I could use all the words against him. It's just.
But he'll have Bible verses on why he's judgmental.
Sure. Is it, if you don't let people know how you feel, then you're encouraging the.
But he'll have the Bible verses justifying his position for two reasons. Either from the new hermeneutics, which is a historical critical method of modern society, or from a literal translation of the Bible. The book says. In both cases, that's not good theology. Good theology, the book is a whole book. It's about a whole person. Both of them, one isolates to a certain time and place. Now, here's what they were really into those days, the historical critical method. And this is why he said this, and so forth and so forth. And all of a sudden, we make that the new rule, as opposed to the whole Bible, what it's about. The fundamentalists do the same damn thing. It says here, word for word, literally. Both of them don't look at the word as a whole. And so I'm just saying, a pastor can go either way and still be bullshit.
Well, I guess I feel like we kind of finished the discussion on God, but I'm not. It seems like you're not real comfortable talking about it, and I don't. I'm.
My friend Ewell wrote a book. I haven't read it in a long time. Hope in the Time of Abandonment, in which he discusses the silence of God. And I'm not a biblicist at all. I wish I were, but I'm not. But I do remember he mentions, something I remember too, do remember here, in the Psalms, God is silent. The psalmist will say, "Where in the fuck are you, Lord? Where are you? Why are you silent?" Eliel makes the point that God has been silent since God is dead. God has been silent, and when we deal with what's really happening today, this is one thing. There's others, the environment, a few other things. Really get into it. Not the EPA approach to the environment. What's happening to the individual, work, and so forth. And when we look at what's happening, I'm making this tons in here. We can see, sorry, Rifkin, it looks impossible. It's impossible to change. On the one hand. On the other hand, for those in the faith and who have the calling, there's no way we can accept a world in which the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. We can't accept that. So on the one hand, it's impossible. On the other hand, we can't accept that. So you can't call me a fatalist or an optimist. I'm a realist. I don't think I don't see any possibility of stop selling more and more plastic electric toothbrushes to every person in the world, even though that means the destruction of the individual, the environment, resources, God knows what else, okay, and jobs. I don't see any possibility. I don't see it out there. We justify success at all costs, no matter whether it's criminal success or anything else, and money. I mean, it's the bottom line of everything. So there's nothing out there to see any chance. Our best friends are totally wrapped up into securities and security, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I happen to know that we don't need to sell plastic electric toothbrushes in order to survive in the world today. There has got to be another way to do it. That's a reality.
Sure.
I'm positive.
Absolutely.
Now, how to bring those two together, I guess Marx would call that dialectics. If Marx were alive today, I believe, with a passion, and so does my mentor, that he would replace money with technique and technology in his studies and his work.
What do you mean?
Money was to the system, capitalism of his time, what technique and know-how is to the system today. Money's way down the pike. And if you got know-how, you got money.
Yeah.
If you got money and you don't have know-how, you ain't gonna have it long.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of corny way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can inherit all the money you want, but you better buy know-how with it, or you're in trouble. Or get it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be an idiot's son, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm getting at is that for me, I can't, the strength to challenge this, and where is this coming from? How come we've gone from work is everything to work is nothing? What's caused that? I could say that better, but not now. I don't want to walk away from an argument and discussion on this subject, ever. It's dynamite in terms of what it's done to people today. Whether it's real life of a woman gets a job cooking at $6 an hour, means she loses all her Medicare.
You said
on welfare.
The strength to go through that comes from
a source that has to transcend a global system. Now, that wasn't always the case. We could say Buddhism, we could say Islam, we could say East, we could say West, we could say European, and that's where it's at. Or you could say Israel is where it's at, if you're a Jew. Not in the United States, Israel's where it's at. But if you were open, which most people aren't, and really look at things, you'll discover that Israel runs in Tel Aviv exactly like Washington, exactly like Moscow. It's Beijing. Beijing, with all the Mao history, runs like Washington. A lot of residue from the past. We have a residue of no state. Germany has a residue of a lot of state, and so forth. But the bottom lines are the same. They both look, number one, to the Board of Trade and to the banking industry. That's what dominates. Now, where was I going? I was trying to say something important.
I'm still on a thread from God is silent.
Yeah. Oh, I know where I was going on that. Yeah. And so God has to be, for me, because if my mind is to be important as a human being, and I can't imagine anybody telling me differently, okay? I can't imagine my feelings as a human being not important to me as a human being. I also know the power of the Spirit, meaning my middle class way of life is more powerful than I want it to be. I will be on time when I shouldn't be on time sometimes. I'm being corny and fast.
Yeah.
I am dominated by my history. I'm determined by my white, male, European background, Lutheran background, more than I want to be. But I'm part of that. It's part of me. It determines a lot of me. No, I can't chuck it away, but I can rise above it by recognizing it. Okay? Recognizing that I am not as free as I think I am is the first step of freedom. And very few of us recognize that we are determined. We make all these stereotyping judgments on people, and we don't recognize, my God, don't you know you're one of those? You know, I can spot a German Lutheran, as I've always said, from Iowa, 2 blocks away, you know. And they haven't said anything yet. And until you recognize how we're determined by history, tradition, culture, we can't rise above it and respect tradition and history and culture, and others included, that are different than ours. We don't recognize that. We can't respect. So in this, now we're in a global society. A decline of the global labor force. We're in a global society. Same bottom line everywhere. Of efficiency and all that goes with that. Same bottom line everywhere. Jew, I'm sorry, you can go to Israel all you want, but you will end up being disappointed today if you hang around. And my Jewish friends have come back and say the biggest disappointment is to not enjoy suddenly not being an individual. Over here, they were individuals. Over there, they're Jew, period. Over here, they're on the outside looking in. Over there, they're on the inside. Mm-hmm. And that in a global system, there has to be that strength, that source can't come from Zionism, can't come from Europeanism. It has to come from a transcendent creator. It has to be a force, a source outside of the global system, outside of Michael Jordan and McDonald's and so forth, outside, which transcends all cultures and wipes them out more every day. The Doles don't even want Spanish taught, which is insanity. And the Doles, I might add, overtly champion Toffler and progress in technology. They're champions of it. They even say it.
Yeah.
Now, so that says to me, how can I know the train's moving? I got to have a reference point that's different. Tel Aviv's not different. I can't use that as a reference point to see. If you don't have a reference point and your kids have fewer and fewer, you're not going to know the train's moving. You got to have a reference point that's different. And that reference point isn't even the church. because it's conforming like crazy. It's not Zionism. It's not Lutheranism. I look at Valparaiso University. It's no different than Western Illinois State University, the student union, everything. What they consider important. So this source, this strength has to be a transcendent source. Now, there are a lot of transcendent gods out there, all over the place. Allah, Buddha, Dionysius, Zeus, God knows what out there. ESP, all sorts of transcendent gods out there, including your transcendent self out there, ESP or whatever. I don't know all that shit. Nature shit. We're going back to primitive religions like crazy, of nature.
Mysticism.
Yes. 2 hours of mysticism yesterday in the parade called Shriners. That's all mysticism. And the Moonies have the parades that they don't cover, the Moonies cover for 2 hours of their floats and stuff. No, my mind can't handle that. They don't deal with this problem, which is most serious. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poor. I don't care if you are in Iran or India or China, the poor are getting poor and the rich getting poor, and that's devastating. That's a crisis, if we know anything about poverty. And so they don't deal with it. Yahweh is a transcendent creator who touches base with me and the man on the street. He came in the form of a baby, the incarnation. My guess is that's the only way we could possibly accept him. If he came in telling the truth as a 30-year-old, he'd been killed before he got out of the crib. Even so, he was a threat. And so all the babies 2 years old were killed at one time. But a little baby is not a threat so much. But the incarnation, a man God, who walked the streets, we've heard this 1,000,000 times, and who was fully a man, fully wanted to make out, etc., etc., and said no.
Mm-hmm.
And told the truth. He was an excellent Jew, a rabbi, who all he did to get killed was say, the law is not absolute. That's what got him killed, because they had sacralized the law, the covenant.
Mm-hmm.
We made it sacred out. You're going one step too far. You're saying work's not sacred. 40, 50 years ago, that's really a no-no. You're saying the pulpit's not sacred? I mean, here's the United States and the police married to the pastors in the whole country. They could stay at any motel free, any hotel free, anything.
What, pastors?
Yeah. They're all seen. The sacred clergy. Now it's the sacred cow, the sacred windows, the sacred narthex, the sacred chalice. I mean, in churches, people can't even walk up on the altar, What is this shit?
I don't know.
Because when he died, all those sacreds were destroyed.
Got rebuilt pretty quick.
Immediately, man rebuilds it. That's called the fall. That's called sin. Man quickly must be the creator. And
It's a lot easier to live with rules than.
oh, give me 50 rules, I'll do anything.
I mean, it's a lot easier to live with rules than the truth.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the whole thing. Now, where is the strength going to come for you to live with the truth instead of the rules?
Is that? I'm just curious. I mean, is that the reason for you're telling your football players, what rules do you want? Did it come out of this kind of thought?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the reaction was unbelievable. I told you the reaction. Athletic director freaked out. Everybody freaked out. Top stars of the football team freaked out, And
Tell me the rules you want.
it had nothing to do with whether they're going to smoke or screw or not, because they're going to do it either way,
Or not do it either way.
Or not do it either way. Only this way they're bear the responsibility. I'm just going to play the guys that can play the best. That's all. I'm surprised you remembered that one.
Oh,
no. That's a good one.
No, I mean, I've always kind of, part of the reason for this, part of what I want to understand is, why you are the way you are and why you've done the things you've done. And, I've always been impressed by that story. Now, it's an impressive story if you come from a New Left point of view or from, there's all kinds of ways to challenge
authority.
Yeah. And that kind of thing. And it was very creative, and it was it's a way, and I think it's the kind of thing that you've probably done in your teaching career a lot. Those kind of
with grades, I've done that.
Challenges that I see in a lot of the things you do is that it says you're not going to walk around the Bible verse. You're going to walk up to it and face it, whatever it says. And it's the same thing with the rules. It's like, well, if you're a football coach, the rules that you can't play because you drank last night doesn't make any sense. Mickey Mantle was a great player, whether he drank or anything else.
I agree.
That's right. And as a coach, you can just say, I'm going to play the coach rules. What rules do you want? You want these other rules? Make them up. And it's pedagogically, it's great. It makes them struggle with.
I drove our urban studies faculty crazy because I had full attendance at all my seminars every Tuesday and Thursday or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And things are lax there. Lax a lot of places, and they might have 3 people show up for their seminar and so on. I had full attendance. Now, we were forced to give grades about 15 years ago. About a third of the way into our urban studies, we were forced now to give grades. And I also taught here afterwards, and I did the same thing. I said, well, I'm in the real world. And the real world says, I had to tell the students before I said, the real world says that pass and fail is, we'll give it to you. As a matter of fact, you can opt for pass and fail since the Kent State affair. You can opt for pass-fail individually if you want it. But I just want you to know that no corporation, no graduate school will accept the pass and fail grade. They don't mean anything.
Yeah.
So you better know that. So that's your decision.
You didn't take the course if you took it pass-fail.
Yeah, that's right. So that's your decision. So now we are forced on this side of the fall. I would throw those into urban studies. They'd really freak out when I'd say on this side of the fall. On this side of the fall, we were forced to choose, and I'm forced to give grades if I want my job. And I do want my job, even though I have to be against what I'd like to do. Okay? I'm not happy with giving grades. But I'd rather eat. And now, here's what we're going to do. There's no way in liberal arts I can grade and measure you. There's no way in liberal arts. That's a contradiction to liberal arts, and I won't go into that now, but it's a contradiction.
Yeah. I agree with you, by the way.
Now, what I can do, however, is, and this is what your company really wants to know on you anyhow, is your attendance, your punctuality, so forth. And there are two things that one might help me a lot. I'm going to give you something to read that's provocative every class period to take home. I don't care if it's one sentence or a whole page. I want you only to write what you think about this provocative thing. You might write it's bullshit, but I'd get tired of reading it every time you're saying it's bullshit. But if you take the time to show me, you have to give some indication that you read it as you say bullshit. You'll get an A if you do it, and a 0 if you don't. And if you're here, you get an A. If you're not here, you get a 0. Those are the two factors that will make your grade. There's no reason you can't make an A.
Yeah. Read it, write about it in a way that lets me know you read it, and come here and sit here.
And when you read it, I don't want to hear anything other than what you think about this. Don't tell me what the author is trying to say. I know what the author is trying to say.
Or you think you know. You have an opinion about it.
I want to know what you think about what he wrote.
I know.
And I always had perfect attendance at VU. And people couldn't figure it out. It's such damn good attendance, you know.
Well, the fact of the matter is, you didn't have good attendance because you told them they had to come. Because there's plenty of profs that say if you don't come, you get marked down for it. You had good attendance because students are interested in your kind of class.
Well, they didn't want a 0 either. Well, I said if you're not here, I can't. There's no way I can. The grades for me only mean quantity. Does not mean thinking. And did you do it? Or are you here? It's the only two ingredients I can measure.
That's all the employers want to know.
That's all they want to know.
They don't want to know if you think
that's
well.
That's what you're here for, isn't it? How right is to get a job, right? Now,
did you do
get that out of the way? Get that out of the way.
Did you do the job and did you come to work? Did you come to work and did you do the job?
Right.
That's right.
We'll get that out of the way. The rest of the time we're going to devote to thinking, which will be no grade on. But I will say this, by the end of the semester, now and then we'll quit. By the end of the semester, but I told you this before too, but I've never forgotten it. This is rather typical in a way, but not this expressive. This kid came up to me, Walt, I got to talk to you after class. 6 weeks. Colorado College. Rich kid. He had a little, what do you call it, Porsche, one of the little convertible jobs.
Yeah.
Or he had that. Credit cards coming out of his ear. Well, he says, I make straight A's in Colorado College. I'm smart. I can get any gal I want. I know I'm going to get a good job. But you have totally fucked me up. I don't know where I'm at. He says, you haven't helped me decide where I'm going, but I just want you to know you have really pulled the rug out from under me. So that's probably all I can do.
And I consider myself to have done a good job.
Yeah. But I had really good respect from the kids by the end of the semester. Though I don't want to go through being mad, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But I had good respect from the kids. And on I'm not tooting my horn here, but I'm tooting what this thing is about. But, you know, now they did plays and skits, individual, collectively, that was the big finale, you know. anyone that had anything to do with my class. Didn't do it about their internship or anything else. Did it about technology, making fun of it or this or that and stuff like that. It was interesting.
It's interesting. The other book that I bought yesterday, I bought for Annie, and it's called Lies Your Teacher Told You. And it's another one of these Howard Zinn kind of books about, truth about historical figures and whatnot. But it seems to me that it's this approach. Don't ignore the fact that George Washington was a slave owner. Mm-hmm. He was a slave owner.
A good man.
That's right. But we may, and this guy's whole point there is that we whitewash things. We make heroes of people. And we do ourselves...
That's the compensation.
We do ourselves a disservice because by putting them up on a pedestal, cleansing them of all the evil or all the humanity, really, we make it seem like we couldn't do that. When in fact, we can do it. And it's... he started out with two people. He started out with Helen Keller. What do you know about Helen Keller? He looked at 12 history books. And, of course, that is the worst pablum in the world. You look at a high school history book.
Okay.
There's no light there. He says, students are bored. It's no wonder. There's nothing. Everything is just sanitized. He says, who was Helen Keller? The students tell him, she was a blind, deaf girl who learned to speak, and she was a humanitarian. Did they tell her that she was a radical socialist? That she was friends with the head of the Communist Party? That she was a wobbly? That to her dying day, she was, she fought against oppression of people with handicaps and the poor? Did they tell you that? No, they don't know any of that. That she was a pariah in her own age because she took on these socialist beliefs? And he talks about Woodrow Wilson and how they sanitize him. Stuff I never knew about. Mm-hmm. And the whole book is that way. And it just seems to me that...
That's good. There's another way, and that's the Mike Royko way. I don't know how much you followed the news on Carl Rifkin. 70,000 people in the world. 70,000 people stood and cheered
for 22 minutes.
22 minutes.
And 15 seconds.
And all over every paper, all over everything is Carl Rifkin. Pictures and hero. Did you read Royko?
No.
Talking about his favorite bar and the barkeeper there. And come hell or high water. Rifkin, I think, went 10 years. I'm not sure. He hasn't missed for 17 years being there, even if he's sick, being at the bar.
Royko hasn't.
No, this Royko's barkeeper,
Yeah.
And then he went on to say how mothers and everything else never missed a day, for...
That's right. It's not such a big deal.
And this guy played 3 hours of baseball 5 months of the year for 10 years. He's the biggest hero.
The president comes to talk about it. That's right. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. It's really ludicrous. He could have been injured. So what? He played hard every time. So what?
3 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's from coming early.
He was lucky that he didn't break a leg.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's all.
There's guys who come to work in a steel mill.
Credit, he didn't fake breaking a leg either.
That's right. Guys who come to work in a steel mill every day, whether they like it or not, for 30 years, they get a gold-plated watch when they leave. It costs.
Well, that was Royko's whole column.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's the truth telling. I saw this book in there, and Annie's taken American history. And I thought, I hope she reads this. It may add some life to that class.
Now, in terms of what's happening globally in the global system and all that entails, because it touches everything in life, this new system. To tell the truth about that, and believe me, I know from failure. To tell the truth about that, the key word is something worth talking about, and that's incognito. You can't blare it out. Royko can do it on Carl Rick, but you can't put that in a bigger perspective.
Okay. No, I understand that, and part of it is just sneaking in some of the information.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like
asking a question.
What political party was Helen Keller a member of? You know, I mean, something, something that gets them off of the, something that lends them, I understand. Yeah, I understand exactly. You're right. If you're interested in reading that book, I'd like to read it.
I'll go through it pretty fast.
No, I'm not.
No, I'll read it. I want to read it.
Take your time. I thought it would interest you. That's why I got it. But I'm also interested in looking at it, and maybe we can talk about. It seems to me that's something that might be fruit for.
It's a good point. Good point.
But
good point.
We read a book together a number of years ago. You remember that?
Mm-mm.
Huh?
Mm-mm.
We had a little discussion.
What was it?
It was about work.